And we're live.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, UK League fans. My name is Trajan. I'm here with Rob, officially now Rob Outloweth. It's been put on the graphics. It's been locked in visual stone. And we're here to do a little bit of a roundup. This is the Saturday show, come back from last year. Let's talk about the first couple of weeks of the Four Nations in spring 2026. Rob, how are we doing? You're prodding today for us. You're doing a bit of extra work.
I'm doing a bit extra here. I've also realised I've set something up wrong, so you can't even see your own face. I don't think right now, which is your beautiful face, your beautiful Scottish face. Only the world can see it, and you cannot. But
That's
I'm feeling
okay. I know what
pretty.
It looks like. I've seen it before.
He doesn't keep mirrors around his house.
It's all right.
He doesn't.
No, they're all smashed in my house.
You're like, who's this guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty happy. I'm excited for today, just to have a little yap, because I think we missed it last week. There are plans in the future to bring people on and to get some guests and maybe have a few games. But I think it's important just to recap with 2 weeks already gone, just getting a recap on where we are. What we're expecting, because there was a tier list, and the tier list is kind of right but kind of not right, and then people are upset about it, and then
so goofy now.
Yeah, we'll go from there, I guess.
Eagle-eyed viewers will notice that there is kind of a space below us on this screen, and those spaces will in the future be filled by additional guests both from the talent team and potentially from the wider scene as well. So look out for that on future Saturday shows. We have plans to put into place. But as Rob said, we just want to have a bit of a yap today, get everyone caught up. We didn't have a show last week, and there's a lot of games, a lot of team movements to cover here. So I think that when it comes to the tier list, right? Ultimately, I'll go ahead and assume I wasn't on that show. I'll go ahead and assume it was kind of a end of season. This is where we're going to end up kind of vibe. With Broad and Goodshi at the top, certainly reasonable assumptions to be made. And this early on, there certainly are some convenient schedule issues that have put certain teams at the top of our standings that maybe wouldn't be at the top at the end if I was being generous, Rob. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but some teams have played Natives Academy and some haven't. So
yeah, I'm about to be blind. I'm bringing up the Excel spreadsheet. I'm bringing up all of the information just to make sure I don't get anything wrong. But no, there are some teams at the top. There's one team that a certain org owner will never let us live down the fact that his org is currently at the top of the league.
It's insufferable.
But
this can't continue. Yeah. We can't take it.
So basically, we're supporting everyone other than the one at the top, I guess, because we want the team to be taken down. No, I think it's kind of opened up it in a way where there's been, I don't know if there's been too many actual like upsets, right? Like I think there's probably, I'm thinking about the scheduling that we've had, and I can only think of one game that really goes against what we thought, and that might have been Bandit Scenari. But everything else I think has kind of lined up the way that we expected, other than Brod maybe dropping a couple of games as well.
That's the thing, right? It's the nature of the sort of pseudo best of two format is that like we have had a couple of 1-1s, but we've not had any, as you say, the only full upset. I'd agree. I think Inari over Bandits UK is the only one that really fits the bill there. And Inari is quite a strange beast. They are currently 4-0, and they've 2-0'd Bandits, and then they've 2-0'd, I think, Natives Academy. And that was actually the native series that was played. Like that was or one of the two series that was played. So they did genuinely go into the Rift, admittedly with Zathos in mid, and kind of style on them, which we all reasonably expected most teams to do. I think even before this change, the Natives Academy roster was not super highly rated on the pre-show, and we did not expect it to perform super well. And having a sub in mid lane is not going to help that, obviously. So Inari is a bit of a weird beast. Certainly Nat in the jungle, I think, was a concept we were aware of, and people thought, like, this guy's pretty solid. Like, Nat is definitely a player that is worth keeping an eye on. But the win over Bandits certainly makes you wonder, how is this Bandits roster gelling, or how were they gelling at the start? And for Inari, it was like one close game and one stomp in that series. So like Bandits were not completely helpless. It could have been a 1-on-1 if things had gone a little differently. But that's like the one team in the top half of scenario where I'm like, okay, are they going to stay here? How good actually is this team?
I think, I mean, on our preview show, I don't know if you caught it, I had heard quite a lot of hype around, teams like Inari coming in. I'd heard a lot of hype around Oku and Nat and some of them players from
top laners spoke highly of Oku.
They spoke very highly
Loopy
of Oku
on the show that they did as well, speaking that they thought Oku was legit. So,
and I think that for a team like Inari to come in, I guess to get sort of at this point, Bandits is like a stalwart UKEL team, right? Like they've had an entire year here. They got finals in their first split. Like you can't really take that away from them. They are probably they've considered one of the better teams in the UKEL. They did go 10th last split, but we'll ignore that. Ignore that little hiccup. But no, I think that sort of first game is more telling than obviously the Natives game was really not very close, and I think they are still needing to be tested. I'm just gonna have a quick look at what we've got here for the next matchup for them, because I think that's the most telling thing for me is who are they facing next? Where have they got on the schedule? Hold on, they're against Brod.
So that'll tell us.
So they have a test. I think this is
Yeah.
because I think the thing with the Bandits roster, which is the question I had coming in, is that you had 3 of the finalists, but all of them were pieces like cogs in the Lunkerfer machine in that split, and they needed to have a carry performance coming out of jungle in that split with Lunkerfer, who did really show up. And I mean, he's gone on to bolder and brighter things in Road of Legends, right? They just beat Zen IT Bandit. Shout out to the Bandits. They just beat Zen IT the other day. They're now top 3 in the Dutch league.
Holy.
So
Let's go.
so they they could be even higher. They could even get finals, right? Because it's a weird gauntlet style thing that they're doing over there. But that's the thing. It's like
Yeah.
that team was that team with the number of those players was 10th here. Just saying the UKL
Mhm.
clearly better than the whole of the Benelux region.
It's just a
Uh,
harder region, it's just stronger, just kind of across the board. I think we could say pretty confidently
exactly.
there.
But the
Something like that.
Bandits had that rebuild, and it's like Kenny, Loopy, and Jamie. Jamie was kind of like a secondary carry to Lunkifer, but still facilitated. They
Mhm.
played a lot of like when they had a Lendl ADC back then. They had played a lot of like Syndra Ash, and I was like, how does Gabby
Yeah,
look? Because Gabby, I thought was like an Aphelios kind of Jinx player. Like he can play other champs every AD
he's a
carry,
scaler,
but
right?
he's a
He's
scaling hyper
best on a
carry.
scaler.
And then
Yeah.
like Clicker had like Diana, Jax, and then Wukong, and I'm like, well,
Hmm.
he's now brought out the Jax as an aside in that series as Nuclear Vikings, but
Yeah.
they put him on Vi, and it was like clearly this isn't working. Let's actually play the champions he's good at.
It's with the Vi. So the Vi game, it seemed like when I was watching it, it's like he knows he knows how to jungle. Like he knows how to play this champ. But it didn't seem like we were getting the most out of him. And like yeah, that game, and that was like an earlier point when I was asking um the coach for Bandits Chrysalite about like how has it been settling in with Clicker? Like what's because that's like the biggest unknown piece. We know all the other players. Three of them have been on Bandits before. Like that is kind of a return to a previous Bandits plus Gabby to fix that kind of bot lane carry potential. And then the jungle is where it's going to pivot around. If this works, it's going to be great. If it doesn't, it's not going to work, right?
Mm.
But they said that Clicker was taking a little time to adapt to competitive kind of tempo, as it were, to the
Mm.
pace of the game in competitive. Like in solo queue, on your Dusk and Dawn Jax, you can't necessarily rely on your team to be doing things at a certain time in a certain way. So you've got to just make it happen yourself, you know. But in comp, the enemy team are going to be more coordinated. Your team is available, and like kind of an interesting element to that is if you make a play. I think this wasn't necessarily about Clicker, but about maybe one of the other junglers and teams. I don't remember, but it was like if you make a play, your team are probably going to follow you into that play because they're playing comp and they're trying. And if
Mm.
it's a bad play or if it's like a bad idea, or you
Yeah.
can't assume that they're just going to let you die. I think this was Frisky actually talking about Verdant Academy when I was speaking to him after their first loss. Like they were struggling to get on the same page in the right way because like their jungle and the rest of the team wasn't necessarily clicking properly because like if the jungle was doing something and then the rest of the team was piling in and everyone was dying and it was like, well, why are you all
Mm.
here? It's like, well, I thought we were doing this together. Like I thought we were making a play here. So that kind of it's kind of the other side of the like a bad play is better if everyone's on the same page. Sometimes it
Mm.
drags everyone down into the hole and like one
Mm.
person could have been sacrificed for the mistake kind of thing. I'm sure Frisky could potentially rephrase that if he wishes, but for Clicker, he needed some time to get used to comp.
Mm.
And it seems like it only took him about a week because on the Diana game and the Jack Stronger game, he was phenomenal. He was popping off. He was critical to those games. There were comfort picks for him, which undoubtedly helps, but the team was all playing with him. Like Bandits just out team fought Absolved on that Diana game. And this is Absolved should be a team that is an excellent team fighting team. They've got Rhythm and Emil to carry for them. They should be one of our best team fighting teams. And Bandit like won that game by just going 5v5 and scrapping it out with them and winning. And that is not to be underestimated. So I think Clicker has already started to gel a lot better, which makes me very hopeful for Bandits. They're 3-3 right now. I think they're going to be a lot higher by the time we're done.
Yeah, I do think as well, you look at that Diana game and you look at what was being picked up by Absolved. You know, they went for like the Xayah for Rhythm, which is, you know, if you expect 180 carry that can perform on that champion in a game where he's being dove constantly. I think they played like Rumble, Diana, Yasuo, and I'm trying to remember who the other two picks they had there. They had like more diving going in as well. I think they had like
Wasn't that the Smolder Nami? First Smolder Nami?
oh yeah,
Game?
Smolder
Or
Nami as well. So like, yeah, the Nami moving forward and jumping on top of you. It's like, well, the lane is not great for Xayah, to be honest with you. Like Nami, not Nami. It was Nico ruins every diving for like every moment when you try to like play any sort of like Xayah or lower range ADC or one that doesn't really have the poke. And it was one where I think Gabby as well played very well in that game. It's one that I had questions about the bot lane because
super clean.
Kenny is like a pike. Sort of a pike, like you know, but I remember him playing like a lot
fresh kind of
like that kind of like a more like a roaming kind of vibe. Like he used to make a lot of plays around the map, and I was like, Gabby to me seemed like someone who was like, let me play for lane, especially when he was because he was obviously on Absolve last split. So I think they've if they go into their sort of come all together, all on the same game, on the same page, that should be an incredibly strong roster. It looked like it should have been strong on paper. Like I mean, I had them sort of top 4, just from the fact that. Like I didn't think in the first week or whatever it was that they would go put Clicker on like Vi. I thought they would be like, okay, let's recognise our strength. We've done it before with Lunkefer, who we let him play. Like he did
they
obviously
let
have a
him
good
play
starter.
Rengar when it was on Viego and stuff. Like
Lilia, his Lilia was exceptional as well. That split,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't the most meta ever at the time. I think if I remember correctly, it was like let's give him the carries or like let him carry the game. And I thought they'd do that with Clicker, and they didn't in the first games. They put him on like Vi, and I was like, what was he doing with this? This guy's a carry player through and through, and so it's good to see that they're now more willing to put him on those kind of picks. And then also Diana Yasuo in particular. It's not the most meta combo and hasn't been for a long time, but then willing to bring it out versus like we thought was a top 3 team and taking that win. And it was not really that close either.
It
was
works
kind of a
though.
smash
Like
in that game too.
it's like Nocturne Oriana. Like even if those picks are fine right now, to be clear, but like especially Oriana's very highly like picked and Nocturne's still viable. But if this is a combination that kind of pushes through any meta disadvantage, like if you need an engine to create plays, Diana Yasuo or like Malphite and Yasuo, Malphite Oriana, Nocturne Oriana, these are like ways you can patch over. Like we don't have the best meta read now. We don't have the best comfort on these strong picks, but we need something that can get like plays started that we can rally around, that we can just all get on the same page with. Like draft a combo like that, and that really really works for Bandits UK. It got them on the same page, and it let them, as we say, 5v5 out. Plays the Gabby's strength as a scaler, as a great team fighter. It plays the JB's strengths as like a supportive. Or like a mage player that again favors team fights. Oriana, Victor, like these are champs that are great in extended engagements. And then the Yasuo coming out for him as well, right? He's got like the Akali Yasuo assassin options there too. So this roster, as I said before, like at the start, this formula for Bandits makes a lot of sense to me. I think it plays to all of the players' strengths. If they do what makes sense and what is logical for these players, they will fit together really really well. So I think that like it's a great like roster scouting report. I think for Bandits, I think they put together a great 5-stack, and they're definitely going to be a real threat here, because especially we are seeing Broad, Gucci, Absolved all like be exploitable. They are not putting together perfect games. They are dropping games that maybe people wouldn't expect them to do. So there's a big window for like another team to step up into that like S tier which was reserved for Broad and Chi at the pre-show.
I think it's also space for some maybe Broad or Chi. This is no offense to either of them, maybe dropping down a bit as well. Like I think we have quite high expectations when you have such storied players on those two rosters. So like coming in like again, Loopy, Kenny, they played not the whole of last year, right? I don't know if did Kenny play in the finals. I think he did. He didn't. He didn't play the third split. He played the first two, and I think again for those players, like Loopy's now played in the league for an entire year. We sat there and called him got Orn 2-trick, and then I forgot. I then looked at his account. He's only like playing Rumble. He's like spamming Rumble. I know he's got another account that he plays on where he plays like Ambessa and he plays Gwen and he tries all these champions out and he practices them. And so like I think for players like that, you know, we've always had the storied ones. You know, you can look at the Broad roster and go, oh my god, they got like Akkers, they got Big Sin, they got Bear Tree. Like Rise has Jamsu. You can then look across and go, Gucci has like Fastlegged and Korosh and Phrase, and all of these players that have been around in the scene for a really long time. You start getting to that point where like Loopy's been here for a year. Like when do you start discussing him as being like, you know, a stalwart part of the UKEL for like, is it 2 years? Like it's ERL 2 level, right? Like you can't the time moves differently here. We don't have a chance of a player playing here for either they play for a very long time or they move up very quickly, right? Because they get scouted, and that almost happened with Rhythm. I guess we can go to Absolved now. Is a great point to talk about, because Absolved, I think against Nuclear Vikings in the first week, it was a 2-0, but I don't think it was a particularly convincing 2-0 to me. I think I don't know if you managed to catch. I can't remember if you were on that game or catch that game. It was like there's a Kale being picked into a Rumble by Shush, but the Rumble gets a solo kill and then is down like 20 CS and 3 kills.
The Kale's like up 15 CS at level 3 and then dies and then wins the lane. It was a very hard one to follow, that lane.
Yeah, it was very weird. And then like they kind of out team fought Nuclear Vikings, and then the Nuclear Vikings.
The game kind of ended up as Shush versus the world, and he's like playing Kale and he's not level 16 yet, and like the rest of the team is just getting clapped at Dragon while he's like, guys, I'm so close to
I'm almost there. And then Josh Kang in the second game like put in a really great Lee Sin performance. But the whole of Absolved, like to actually talk about the team I want to talk about, in that game they looked a little bit disjointed. I thought they'd come in with Emil and Rhythm, who have a huge history in comp.
Mhm.
They now have a history in the UKL with Emil. You know, I think last year looking really, really good. And they just seemed really rough around the edges. They didn't look like they
No, they
really
do.
had an idea about how they wanted to play. Like Emil was getting caught at weird times. I remember Rhythm on the corky, you know, flying into his death in mid lane against them, and then like
Yeah, that was
and
a
then against the
choice.
Bandits. It was like the first game was like, damn, they're like they're rolling and smoking them. Like they actually
Mhm.
played them like completely off of the rift. And then the second game, in a game where I thought like, okay, they have a draft here where they can kind of peel back and like try and play. There's initial dive from the Bandits, and then like they can maybe play a bit slower, and like you've got the Rhythm Zaya. They just got wiped off the map in that game.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't
Mhm.
really know how to place Absolved at the moment because I think they should be better on paper,
Yeah.
but they seem to be making a lot of really messy mistakes.
Yeah, I think again their top side is a little nervy and a little fresh. The end, yeah, like I'm not trying to blame them for the whole thing because I think Emil and Rhythm have not performed to the level that I would have
Mm,
expected out the gate. I think they're not individually outperforming their opponents as much as they did kind of the last time we saw them. So I think yeah, there's a little bit of ring rust maybe to come off there, a little bit of gelling time for this roster to come through. I think the highs we've seen, especially from UKI in the jungle, or like Rathvez is IGN, but
mm,
UKI the jungle for Absolved, I think he's really promising. I think the Wukong game in the second game versus Nuke, was it Nuke? Yeah, I think it was Nuke.
mm,
And was really pivotal to like holding them in that one. And I think he's like shown a lot. I think their Soimu is hard to put my finger on as well as another like Urgot player, and all of our Urgot players seem to be a little shaky right now. But that new top side definitely needs a bit more time, and the carries that what was meant to be the reliable carry core doesn't seem to have come in at the level we would have that we
mm,
left them at. So there's definitely a bit of work to be done there for Absolved. Again, like the floor should be so high, the talent is so clear on this roster. I think their new players are very impressive, and will do a good job, but it really depends on how much time they have. Obviously they only need to make top eight, and they're currently third with a 3-1 record, so like they'll probably be fine. But
mm.
that's going to take some time to get into place. And now with Inari like muscling into the top side, with Bandits like looking like they're getting better every day, with Bulldog at 5-1, not to like intentionally leave them out of all of these kind of discussions at the top half of the table, like there's a lot of competition up there, and
Yeah.
it might just be a nature of how quickly they can get this together because everyone else is improving at the same time. So
I
Absolved are kind of on the clock, I think.
I think Absolved as well. Like I will shout out Uki's like Kiana game in the first one against Bandits. I
Yes.
think he
Yeah, he was
absolutely
cooking with that one. He was
ran
cooking
the
with that
map
one.
on Kiana. Like I think it was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
I was pretty hard Absolved roster on paper. It's a question about the imports. And then again, you had like the soy players and mid AD carry, and I just think that there's just like a finding the identity, like making sure Uki, because
Hmm.
Uki's champion seems to be like he wants to like his like Lee Sin Kiana kind of thing, which is not. I call it like high meta, you know, like a high culture kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's not like you're sitting there going, okay, he's playing like the Jace, which is, I still think, a pretty strong jungler, at least in comp. Like
Hmm.
you still see, like a Jarvan coming out occasionally. He seems to be, he's more about like a slightly more skill checky kind of expression, which you can
Yeah.
do in this league. I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of teams kind of get wrong is that they go look at Korea or something, and they go, "What are the
Hmm.
Koreans doing?" And it's like you're playing a UKL. Like
We're not.
there's a reason why a lot of players come here. A lot of players come here who end up going off to higher divisions and higher leagues, and they don't look
Hmm.
as strong here. Even on teams that are, you'd think they would stand out and be like
Yeah.
look great, and then they go to and they struggle here, and they go to other regions, and then they look
Hmm.
significantly better. I mean, there's loads off the top of my head I can think of, but I don't know if name dropping
Hmm.
them is the nicest way of going about saying they
Yeah, I
didn't
mean
play well
the
in the
NLC,
UK
yeah, and they go to like other NLC ecosystem
or other
regions, end up like
ERLs.
higher up,
Yeah,
or ERLs. Yeah, like you know, there's
Just it's a weird
something in the
place.
water here.
The UK,
There's something in the water.
it's we play weird. There's like a lot of scrapping. A lot of teams are really scrappy.
Hmm.
Teams play like off tempo a lot, and that kind of causes some problems for some players where they
Hmm.
maybe are used to the game being more feeling, more like turn based.
Yeah.
It's not saying that that's a great thing because I think there's a lot of mess in the UK that happens, but I do think that the way we play is very scrappy. And maybe that doesn't benefit some players. So I
Yeah.
think when they come over here, it takes them some time. Like Clicker's a great example, as we said. Uki's another one. They're junglers that maybe even if they don't have or don't have comp experience, like they've got to come in and be like, okay, like I'm just gonna suddenly be three-manned on my buff here. Like I'm just gonna be like,
Yeah.
why are they
Okay. I
here?
guess
Like
that's what's
this
happening.
makes no sense. Like is my
Yeah.
team doing anything like that? Oh, do you reckon what's happening? I think For Uki, that's another adaptability thing, and I think for Soimu, he just maybe just
Yeah.
needs a bit more time. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not so sure because of like his champ pool. He played like Rumble, and I don't think the Rumble looked like against Nuke. I don't know if the Rumble looked great, and then he played like an Urgot game as well, if I remember.
Mhm.
Was it Urgot he had, or did he get banned?
I don't think he played it, but like because it was a game against
I'm trying to have a look
Loopy,
here.
it would have been, and that's like the Urgot Derby, you know,
Oh, yeah.
as the Absolve coach referred to it as, like because it's Loopy versus Lomu, but no, he played Ornn. He
He
played
played
Ornn that
Ornn,
game,
yeah,
or at
and
least one of them,
it was
which is also
he played
the
Ornn.
Loopy pick of old.
He played
But
Ornn twice actually, if I remember. He played Ornn twice, which is like
he played twice. Yeah.
it looked fine. It's Ornn
Yeah.
versus it's like Ornn is fine into Rumble. He like is actually pretty good. He can itemize into
Yeah,
it.
he can tank it. Like
He can tank
get
the
through that
early
lane.
matchup. I'm just surprised that I want to see a bit more from him more than anything else. And I
Yeah.
think what we should move on to is Brod. Maybe we'll go down not alphabetical
Mhm.
order, but let's grab Brod because they're middle of the pack. Brod, by the way,
Yeah,
middle of the pack,
mid and friends,
mid and
down there at
friends.
fifth. And so the one-on-one versus Gucci, which from the first week, fine. They were both our like strongest teams that we expected. They're both the teams with essentially the highest name value across the board. They one-on-one. Cool. Means we've got potentially setting up an exciting title contention later on in the playoffs, maybe even in the finals, right? Cool. That's kind of what I expected and almost what I hoped for in this kind of format, is for our strong teams to not be decided in week one. So we can't split them yet. They've got to develop over the season, and we'll see how they do in the best of, right? Cool, fine. Then the Bulldog series comes around, and game one is a Bear Tree masterclass. He slams Numel, which, as the stats have not quite realized, the win rates and the play rates have not realized, is still really obnoxious, guys. It's they did not make the champ less obnoxious. People don't ban it as much. I think this kind of, in my mind, as a Mel player, proves that the player base really had no idea why Mel was obnoxious in the first place and had just like Redditified themselves into an opinion they didn't understand, and now they're like, oh, she's fine now. She's not. She's not fine now. I think she's, if anything, in some ways more annoying than she was before to play against, which plays into my benefit as a Mel player. There's so much damage front loaded in the lane. You can still go Blackfire, but a lot of people just going Ludens, Shadow Flame, maximum burst, like, because you just need one tick of the queue, and you're one-shotting people even quicker than you were last time, like in the previous version of this champ. So, and that's what we saw, right? Bear Tree takes it into Ahri from Faulty in the mid lane. It is absolutely unplayable for Ahri this matchup. It is horrendous, and that's what we saw. Now, that game should have been over at 25 minutes, Rob. And it just kind of wasn't for a while. We started seeing shutdowns. We started seeing scrappy, messy throws. We started seeing badly judged side lane pushes. And Broad ultimately had to kind of stumble their way over the finish line in that game, despite being like 12k ahead or something disgracefully, like very, very far ahead. And that ended up being a bit of foreshadowing for that series, Rob, because then it all fell apart in game two.
Yeah, I think, like, so, Sin.
Listen, Big Sin.
It's Big Sin. Shout out Big Sin.
Shout out. We love Big Sin.
Certain things in this league become a meme. And stepping too
One
far
of
forward,
under Rob's head right now.
yeah,
You know,
stepping too far, a bit too far forward in mid lane
on the old mid wave.
on the old mid wave. That's got to stop. Because that game too, by the way, I actually think Brod should win that game.
They were even. It was a very tightly contested game for most of it. I made it sound like it was a stomp for Bulldog. It wasn't. It was a very close.
It was really close, and I think that they were looking. I watched it back, and thanks to the Brods for was it the Brods or the Dogs? I can't remember, but you know they didn't stream. They streamed the Gucci game. I watched the Gucci game. I'm completely going crazy. No, you were on that. You were casting the Dogs and the Brods game.
Cast this.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I got those two mixed up. No, I think that Sin just there's like you watch. He like Kakashi steps up on the Rakan. He starts autoing the Rakan and gets entranced by Magpie's aura or something.
He hasn't even hit the charm yet, and he's already hypnotized.
Yeah, like... and he walks up, and then like Wormsoil just walks at him as Olaf and kills it, just smacks him around. And I think that it was just a bit of disrespect overall in that game against as Brod, because I think they were in an actual position where like you had Bear Tree on the Ari actually putting in a lot of work, and I think they had a good chance of playing out something like there's like that Baron fight later was like super like messy, and then like
Dude, I watched that fight like half a dozen times to work out how Broad lost it. I was like, where does this go wrong in this play? Because they start by killing the Skarner front line. I'm like, how where? And they've removed the Yunara from the equation. Akkus has headbutted Yastrom completely out of the play,
yeah.
and he's just tanking him with his ult. Like, how does this not work? And like, it's it's crazy, man. Like, Wormsoil's Olaf was a demon, and it's like the one play where Sin starts in melee range of the Olaf, and Bear Tree just cannot do anything about it at that point. Like, he can't charm it because he's got Berserker's Rage. He doesn't land a Q to get any more damage off. He's already done like his first rotation to eliminate the Skarner, and now he can't threaten Yastrom because he's on the wrong side of the fight, and he can't do anything to Wormsoul because Olaf and he's ulted, so Ari can't stop him at this point. And Wormsoul just like bops Tweak, bops Sin, and then the Aries now can't deal with the damage dealers. Yastrom isn't dying to Akkus, he's just not being kind of attacked. So, but I had to watch that fight so many times, just go like, because Akkus gets like a 3 or 4 man headbutt pulve at the start of it as well. Like, it's a great start for Broad, and they just lose. And I was like, what is going wrong here? How is this possible?
If I remember correctly, there's the fight on the Baron. They end up turning onto a Skarner, and I just think they just like it's just like target selection. They thought they could like blow up Pivel, and they
takes so long.
They couldn't, and then they played into an Olaf TPing in. So like they all jumped in, and then the Olaf just like hello just appears in the center of them because he's TPing in, and then just runs them through. And I think there was just a bit of like, you know, the meta has developed since 2024 about, you know, if you have like an enemy engaged tool, whether it's a support or a jungler, you look to blow them up first, and then even if you've used a couple ults, you then force the fight 5v4, and because they don't have the engage tool, it's harder for them to play. And I think that's the kind of thing they were going for. If we blow up Pivel, we then either get the Baron for free, or we can then force a fight. And I think that's firstly, Baron is a lot not stronger to kill, but like they were hitting it for about 10-15 seconds, so they were massively shredded on resistances at that point. And they don't drop off like instantly after you stop hitting it, so they were a little bit weaker in the fight. They turned onto a much tankier member, and then it just seemed to like them fall apart, with Wormsoul again having a great game. I think he's actually had a number of pretty good games. Pivel and Wormsoul in particular, both of them have both played very, very well. I think in the first week they were up against Verdant, right? And I think Pivel in that game 1 had a masterclass on the Wukong. And then
absolutely did.
Game 2 he looked
like there was some
solid.
Wormsoil antics in game 2 on Kasane that was like, to be honest, would shatter the mental of even the strongest monk, you know. Like it was proper Kasane copy pasta sort of zone in that series for Wormsoul. That was the first time we saw like, okay, this is why people were hyped, because people were hyping up Wormsoul quite a lot. And that top side for Bulldog is very, very scary. And in this current like state of the game, top side can carry the game. Top jungle can run over an entire 5v5. Like, we've seen it now from Wormsoul. That seems to be the most reliable way for Bulldog to play for wins. Because we do have to kind of mention, I think, the elephant in the room that is, I think we're still suffering a little bit in the mid lane here. I think Faulty is still getting a little bit clapped. We did see a great Nico game from him in the second game versus Verdant Academy. That was very important to those teamfight wins, but that's because Nico out of lane just has to clone Rocket Bell ult every single fight. And that's what he did. And Verdant Academy walked into bad spots and got caught. But like, the lane for Faulty is still really, really struggling. And just in time.
That's what I've managed to time it here very, very well.
Yeah. Just in time for me to start slandering his players.
It's hopefully he's allowed to. If his mic is working, we do have the coach of Bulldog Academy here for when we flame Bulldog. Hopefully, is his mic working? Let's have a look. He needs to relog in Discord, but he is alive. He is here. We'll have him in a second.
Yanked him out the ether.
Is there anything else you want to talk about Brod? Because we speak about Brod a lot. We love Brod, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about before while the old head coach of
So Bear Tree has still got it. Bear Tree's probably, I haven't seen enough of Kurosh's gameplay yet, but it's like going in, I'd probably be like the best mids are probably Kurosh or Bear Tree, and then maybe Emil. Emil's not quite settled in yet. Bear Tree is absolutely settled in. I think that
he's
guy's
here.
Hello.
Absolutely. Oh, here he is.
Hello.
Hello. So we're gonna start yapping about your team before we get into flaming. No, we're not gonna flame them. What,
I'll flame them a little bit.
let him introduce himself. You're the coach
Yeah.
of Bulldog Academy. How do we say your name? Motox?
Uh, Mozox,
Mozox.
or I don't know, man. I made the name when I was like 10 years old. It's just it's legacy at
Saddled
this
around your
point. I
neck.
don't want to change it.
Yeah.
Just call
So
me
Mozox.
Mox. That's what most
Mox.
people call me.
Mox, perfect.
That is way easier. Yep, for sure. Let's
And
do that.
introducing myself. So I'm currently the head coach for Bulldog, and I have played competitive myself for like 10 years.
Oh.
So I have some experience in the scene, and I would say this is my first real coaching job when it comes to Bulldog. So,
Have you been excited to start coaching? Because I did it before casting. I coached sadly in this league, which is a depressing thought. How you finding like coaching in general, and like where did you play before? Because like as I said a couple minutes ago, the UK is a bit of a weird place to play. There's like a lot of people with weird champ pools, and I mean you've got a mid laner who plays Heimerdinger, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
How do you adapt to that?
Well, at first, like adapting to being like coach is very different. It's honestly a lot less stressful because I just have to do the draft and tell people how to play, and I don't have to like log in. So that's
Yeah.
pretty nice. And I think my experience as a player also helps a lot with like the stuff I can teach the players, for example, because all the stuff I've learned throughout all the years I can just give to them, and then it just translates.
What's it like having Jolly as an owner? Is he hands off, or is he always telling you to pick Lilia, or what?
He hasn't actually, like, he is typing a lot in the chat, but he hasn't actually been this much involved.
Yeah, so
he comes around, is a hype man, but like
Good. That's probably what it should be.
he doesn't really like tell me personally. He hasn't had like a chat of like where he flames me or like something like this.
He wasn't in your one-to-ones, and he's like, "Bro, how do we lose this game? Like, we need to fix these draft ASAP." No.
So he doesn't. So he also doesn't. So you're saying he's in the chat right now, but he's a performative owner. He likes to claim the glory that you've crafted this team into a well-oiled machine, and Jolly's just coming in and claiming that as his. Right. That's what I'm getting at here.
I cannot say anything about that.
Yeah. If you speak, you're in big trouble. Yeah. If you speak, you're in big trouble.
Probably the right choice. Okay, look, right. So we were glazing your top side just before you came on, and I think rightly so. I think they're performing very, very well. But I was just about to start slandering your mid laner. So can we talk about Faulty for a bit? Because we on the broadcast, like people are quite harsh on Faulty, generally speaking, on the show. I'm sure you've noticed. I'm sure most people would agree. Like, we've had our problems, and we feel like he's having struggles in previous splits and in this one. So can you tell us a little bit more about this player, what it's like working with him? Like, do you think that we are vastly underselling this guy? Like, would you like to defend your mid laner for a little bit, just so that we can be, a little bit more informed on the show?
The big advantage of having Faulty is I don't know anyone who knows what Heimerdinger does.
It's true.
Yeah, like
Champ's not real.
Like who the fuck knows what Heimerdinger does?
Only Faulty. Hopefully.
But it's also like having a player like Faulty. It gives you some draft benefits, where you can draft in specific ways where people maybe don't expect of. It also makes it so that like if you play around him, if you make sure that like the champions that he's playing, like you understand, the entire team understands what he wants to be doing, you can end up like in situations where people don't expect it a lot of the time.
I mean, like Nico would be the one that comes to mind, because we nowadays think Nico is like primarily a support champion, although she's still playable easily playable in mid lane in the right drafts.
Evidently, yeah.
I think I can't remember. There's plenty of Twitter analysts that have tweeted about it. I think there's a Dutch one that Jolly's had beef with in the past, so I don't know if I can name names, but
Jolly's had
I
beef
think
with
I think
everyone.
I think that guy might have tweeted about this. But no, like Nico is a great example. Like Faulty has a great Nico. The fact you can now like if you I assume that your support can play it. I think Magpie can play quite a few things. You can actually flex a champion like that, which you usually there's a lot of teams that don't play Nico mid anymore. Or don't have the experience playing that, so it seems pretty good. And also, I got another question. Have you? This is completely off topic. I just want to say, have you helped coach your owner? We're going to bring it up again. You need to. You need
to help him out.
You need to help this man. Okay, I'm just letting you know. I think you'll be in for a great career in coaching if you help your owner in solo queue.
Out of gold one.
If he DMs me and asks for it, maybe I can.
Okay.
He's got to put his pride aside.
I'm doing this for you, Jolly. You hate me in the chat. You call for Rob out. I'm getting you coaching from one of your own. But so with the sort of rest of the rosters, like rounding out, like with your bot lane, right? You've got Yazdrom and Magpie. We have seen Magpie Kakashi, whatever you want to call him, in the UKEL for quite a long time now. At least I think it's like a year and a half, 2 years he's been playing in the league. But we haven't seen much of Yazdrom, and I don't really know how to rate him. How do you rate your ADC? I think he's like Hungarian. He's played in comp quite a lot. Did you come in to this roster it already having been built, or did you have sort of a hand in picking up some of these newer players?
So I was actually the last thing that came to this roster. So I had no say in the roster that was being built. But I've honestly gotten pretty happy for my bot lane. Like I think Yastrom is a very, very consistent player. Maybe it doesn't really show, but I don't think that the bot lane like there's been like huge issues with like I don't think any of the deficits we've had is because of some individual thing. Like I think it's mostly team play, and maybe some patience that people should get. But I think when it comes to this bot lane, I think it hasn't been that most exciting games because a lot of the games it's worm soil and
it revolves around top side.
But I think if the split keeps going, you will also see some games where bot lane will carry.
I think he looks really good in the second game versus Verdant. That was like really rough. There was like an incredibly fed Neferi running around, just pressing R and insta killing him. I think there's a couple fights later that Yazdrom plays incredibly well on Caitlyn. Actually, I think he was able to eventually come into a game where he could actually walk and click people as opposed to being instantly jumped on. I think we will probably see a lot more out of your bot. I don't have many more questions. I was interested to see how do you see yourself? Because you came in at the end of this, obviously of the roster building process, Mox. Do you see yourself with this roster going all the way? Are you confident that you're going to take the title? Because for the Bulldog faithfuls, for their biggest fans, and there's
for the dogs.
I don't know if you know this. They were always a bit of a joke in the UK scene. I don't mean this in a mean way. Like in the past, they were like, are they going to get one win this split? You know, are they going to be above F tier on a tier list? And so you're coming in as one of the reasons they could potentially make a title run. Do you feel confident in your roster enough to make that run? Are you happy? Are you think are you going to wait off and say, listen, we might get top 4, or are you going to be like, we're going to take the whole thing?
So here's the reality. I feel confident in my roster, but I don't know the other teams very well. Like I know a lot of the broad players, for example. Like I used to talk a little bit to Sin, so I know like, and I used to play like some in-houses against Sin personally in bot lane, so I know like the level. And I've heard that broad should be the best team, which.
You can have some words. You can get it out there.
Not the best team. One of the better teams
if you have an opinion, as long as you're.
I don't have an opinion. I don't have an opinion because I don't know the teams. But I've heard that Broad should be one of the better teams.
But you did go 1-on-1 against them. So if you have anything you want to tell,
1-on-1 against them.
So they're
and it can only go upwards. I think we have the most productive scrims out of any team. So it can only go upwards.
Okay, I have a follow-up question to that. What makes a productive scrim in your mind? Why are your scrims more productive than anyone else's?
You don't have to reveal too many secrets. I will say
No,
that
you
if
don't
you've
have to,
got
like,
some
share the
trade
secret
secrets,
strategies,
like
but-
secretly you've got a
I
Danish
feel
super
like
team you go against. You don't have to reveal that. But
whenever we come out of a scrim game, I think we have a lot of things to talk about. Like even if we're winning, if we're losing, I think there's always stuff that where and this is just a personal opinion of mine, I always feel like there's stuff to talk about.
That's a good sign. Yeah, because sometimes teams that just win all the time learn nothing and then they collapse in playoffs. Or I like that Magpie in the chat. Don't mention the scrims. Don't do it. So, we'll see if that holds up. But I'll take you at your word. I'll take you at your word for that. And the last question I had was, what do you think is the biggest thing that Bulldog Academy needs to work on in this split? What do you think is the thing that you're trying to fix? What are you trying to kind of to improve kind of primarily? What's like one thing that you're working on?
I would say patience. Discipline. I think a lot of the time we go into the game with a game plan and then we forget. And then but I think when we play our game plan, we like, for example, when we played against Broad, game 1 was a disaster.
It was.
We recuperated. We talked about the game plan. We talked no flip plays, more control, and then
it worked out.
Then
yeah,
it works out.
And don't forget the
Absolutely.
one thing you got to being new to this league and new to coaching. Depending how long you want to stay around in the UK scene, there's a few things you've got to learn, and one of those things is when you're against Broad and if Sin is playing, tell your players to always step around the mid lane.
Just camp mid.
Just camp mid in
Pink
mid
ball,
lane game.
hang out there.
He will walk too far up in mid lane and you will kill him. So just make sure that you teach your players that. For when
I have
finals
played
comes.
against
you played against
in a
them in
lot
the
of
Sin
in-houses.
houses. You know the bros died for that mid wave every time play.
No, I will usually just stomp him in lane instead.
Just clap him out pre-15. Don't worry about it. Okay, maybe we'll have to get Sin on a future episode for a right of reply on that one. But for that, I think thank you very much, Mox, for joining. We'll let you go for now. Thank you for sharing the insights. Good luck and long may Bulldogs reign at the top of the standings in the future.
I was just saying you could. Anyway. That thank you. He's headed out. Appreciate. Thank you, Mox, for joining. We're hoping to get some more people. W coach. We've got PR trained. A PR trained coach.
He's not casting reputational damage towards the brand. He's maximizing shareholder value on this.
He could have easily come in here and said everyone else is trash, and he didn't do that. So Jolly, get on it. You need to sort your coach out because you talk mad smack all the time.
Well, maybe Jolly's just taking the burden of that for the team. He's like a lightning rod for the team for all of the negative energy, allowing Mox to simply work on instilling patience in the current #1 UKL roster.
We've got a bit before we need to round this out. I think we need to move on from the dogs because the dogs have had their day. They've had their day.
Dogs have had a lovely bumper episode on the dogs featuring an interview as they earned. So that's fair enough.
So let's...
we started talking about Nuke a little bit before, and we mentioned how strong Josh Kang's Lee Sin game was, and the top side is definitely has sauce, right? Shush's 1v1 has never been in question. He still fumbles a little bit, but his individual talent is I think it's beyond question at this point. He's definitely deserves to be in Div 1, I would say. Josh Kang is a bit up and down. But again, like the highs are so high that he has to be allowed to be here. Like there has to be a place for him. And I've been very happy with what I've seen from Elling so far, as well. Like the LeBlanc game was particularly good, I think, and I think this guy definitely like there's value and there's pieces here. Where I honestly have been struggling has been the bot side. I think Huglerboy and Scooby have been getting a little bit clapped. They've struggled to get their feet.
Don't mince your words. Get the words out, Trajan. Come on, you can.
Okay, look in that second game versus who was it? Where we had like the Lee Sin game, the Josh Kang Lee Sin game.
That would have been against Absolved.
That was against Absolved, and I was looking at that bot lane, and they were like, brothers were like 0-11. Like it was tragic down there, and the entire top of the map was good and the bottom of the map was folding like a napkin. It was very, very tough. That does seem like a pain point for Nuke. They need to be able to stabilize that, because the rest of the map is able to play with leads, and they're willing to roam down and assist, right? Elling is willing to make crosspath plays. Josh Kang's willing to do that. Shush is, I think, honestly very happy to be left on his own and to just like create advantages. But we need to plug the bot side, man. It's causing them too much trouble.
I think there's a few things. One, like we saw it in that. I think it was the game one versus who did they play the other day? My brain's gone. I've got to look at the schedule again. Was it Bandits?
Inari. So wait, no, that's
they faced Inari. They faced Inari. They've also, it was the Bandits game that was on stream, right?
Yeah, Bandits, Chi, and Absolved. So the Absolved one we've covered. Chi was just an on-stream struggle, I think. I think Chi kind of walked on them a little bit. Not that we wouldn't have expected that to happen generally based on kind of power of the rosters. And yeah, the Bandits one we just saw. And that was like Bandits telling everyone that they're actually back and here to play. And like now they're really clicking, and Clicker was completely dominating on Jax and stuff. Like,
yeah, I think the draft in that game one was very weird. I think that when you've got... Scooby has always been an interesting player anyway in the league for his out of game antics. But I do think, you know, he's brought some weird picks back in the day. I remember when he was on Rise, he played a like the NASA support into Callista and then died like 3-4 times in lane and then really struggled, but it didn't quite work. And I think
wasn't ready for production.
That draft against Bandits didn't really quite work either. I think that there was like an interesting where they had like they picked the Gnar and the Wukong early. They had like the Anivia.
This was the team fight comp that never materialized.
And it was like then they have like a Caitlyn, like they go for like a Caitlyn Rel lane,
but like Anivia to round it out.
But they didn't really play for like they bring in the Rel early as a pick and then they go for Kate. It's like an odd kind of like it's not the most traditional lane pairing. Like usually with like a Rel, you might have seen. To me, I'd have said like maybe you could have gone like an Ezreal there into the Inara. I think there's like a few other picks that you could argue it could be taken there. Maybe like I'm an Ashe lover, as anyone who might know, but I think you could have. I think like Caitlyn just seemed to be. You really want to play for those kind of. If you're taking Caitlyn, you're playing for the Caitlyn lane, and I don't think that's a style. Let alone even if the pick is good, that I think this team should be operating with. I just think they are struggling in bot a lot, and in this league, there's a lot of really good ADCs. A lot of genuinely like Rhythm Sin's there. I think Yastrom's got to be in the conversation now. Braindead's good on Good Chi. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like I think Gabby's a pretty good ADC as well on the side of Bandits.
Great, yeah.
So like you've got like at least 5 there I've already listed that are like you got to match them somehow. You got to bring the fire. Like even Nico on Yanari's pretty good. Like we could list every ADC on nearly every team and be like they are good enough easily to be in this league. It's not like there's another one that you're like coming up against that you're just going to smash in lane.
Yeah.
And they really need to sort themselves out in the bot lane, Nuclear Vikings, because I do think, as you said, they're top side, and I think Josh Kang has actually looked surprisingly good for when it feels like he's got a bit of a hole to plug on one side of the map.
Yeah, like they're. I think they're better than their 0-6 record implies. Certainly, the top side is better than that, and I would put them a cut above Natives Academy personally, like quite comfortably. I think Natives Academy are 0-6, and they probably, unfortunately, do deserve to be considered the worst team, kind of in a league of their own down there. But Nuke versus Nuclear Vikings versus Verdant Academy, for example, I think is a chance for them to maybe strike a blow. Like Rise are still struggling to put it together and are still kind of not quite managing to get games over the line. As we already mentioned, the mid and kind of upper side of the league is now getting a bit bloated. It's a bit overstuffed with teams that are looking like they're good and improving. And Nuclear Vikings, they're running out of easy targets to try and get those wins, because you only need to make it to 8th, but you need to not just beat Natives Academy, you need to beat someone else to get out of there, right? And that right now that's looking like potentially Rise or Verdant Academy. But both of these rosters also have potential. We've seen they've started to put better games together. So it's kind of a tough landscape for Nuke here, but it feels like they're so
can
close.
See it. Like
the top side is good enough.
You can see it where like on one good day, you could see them taking games, as you mentioned, the Rise and the Vernon rosters. I think those are the two main ones.
They almost had it versus Absolve. They could have had it versus Absolve.
I mean, I think they should have a win against. I mean, I think they should have really got a win against Absolve. Like, unironically, I think that was a game. One of those games. Surely they needed to have like put it together in sort of mid to late game and actually taken it over the line. Because it's also games on the board for them is so important. Like any games they got like. I mean, Brod is splitting games 1-1 with everyone, so maybe they can take a game off for Brod. But
Yeah.
you know, I think they need to like. On any day, if you know you see like Shush step up with a carry performance or Josh Kang, for example, as long as the bot lane isn't bleeding, I think there's a good chance they pick up wins there. They just need to. There's in my opinion, you've got no offense to Nators, I guess. Nators are in relegations. Nators are.
I think I don't think there's a way out for them at this point.
I think it's hard for them to get out.
We've
What's
seen
the other slot?
what like the number one team in the league is a 5-1 Bulldogs Academy roster that wins most of their games through topside. Like, it's doable. If you have a strong topside, you can win games. You can just roll with that. You can play through it, and Shush is another guy that I think you can put on these kind of bruiser carry picks and would be able to steamroll. And Josh Kang is a great jungle kind of support role in that and can carry himself, right? They have the same kind of dynamic that they could play, but Bulldog has Yastrum and Magpie, which are a bit more stable down there. They're not necessarily dominating bot lanes, kind of as Mox has said. They are kind of experiencing deficits in a lot of games, but they're consistent players. They're not actually causing as much of a hemorrhage as the nuke bot lane is. And if they can just kind of stall that flow, if they can stem that flow, there's a definite path forward for them to play through the strong top side. So I think they're going to pick up wins somewhere. I don't think they're going to go 0-X. But I hope that they get on the board soon, so that we can start seeing a bit more of that. Because I think it would be a shame if they didn't get at least some wins on the go.
I think we should probably talk about then the rises and the verdants, because I think going back up the table, like there's a few teams here we'll talk. You know, Goodchi. You know, Sonics isn't even here, so like, why do we even bother to eat?
And we haven't seen too many of their games so far, just by the way the streamed and unstreamed schedules pan out. Like, everyone gets basically the same number of streamed and unstreamed games. The schedule is more or less randomized in that way, so we're going to see more of Brod and Goodchi later on. We haven't seen too much of them so far on the stream, but we're gonna see more of them later on as the schedule unfolds.
I mean, we saw the Goodchi game. It was streamed by Dog Sports.
Yeah, so people are obviously welcome and have been streaming them on their own channels. But on the official stream,
if you have a look, like the Goodchi games, we've only really seen a couple of them. I think they look pretty solid. We expect them to be pretty solid.
Again, the floor should be like up here.
It's super high. I just think they've got triple carry threat. They've got Phrase, who even in the game versus Broad, where he kind of died a lot, was the one making plays. For example, in that, like, they played Yasuo bot lane. They brain dead picked out Yasuo.
They're cooking up some stuff.
They're cooking up some stuff. They got Coach Unlimited, so I want to see more of them on the mainstream and get like a couple more games out of them versus like the broad game being early on is a bit of a shame because we don't get to see like the rosters having fully developed through the split before facing each other.
But we are going to see them probably in like first round of playoffs upper bracket matchup or second round upper bracket. Like, I think we just are. And bar some kind of monumental collapse from either of them, I think we are going to see that matchup again. And we saw where they started from, which was they're both flawed, but they're both strong. And
see where the ceiling is, because I think that both of these teams have such that, you know, old dog new tricks kind of thing. Like a lot of story players, does like a coach like Unlimited coming in mean that you get like more out of Phrase and more out of Korosh and more out of Fastlane and more out of
the real battle there.
The rookie in Barone, is that
Little Pants versus Unlimited is the real matchup.
Oh yeah, Coach Mitch,
Coach Big Mitch versus LEC,
ex-LEC,
Unlimited.
Yeah,
who can say? You know,
Copenhagen Wolves, SK Gaming, Unlimited,
like, kind of legend of the Nordic scene. And then we've got Big Mitch, right? So I couldn't tell you who's going to win that one, to be fair. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, certainly Goodchi do have like a back room that we'd probably expect to be able to help them. But we shall see. We'll have to see how that pans out later on. But yeah, let's talk about Rise and Burden. For Rise is they're kind of frustrating to watch, I'll be honest. It seems like I don't think the roster, we kind of didn't have super high hopes for this roster. It feels like they had their top side got poached by Broad, Anarchy and Tweak both kind of swapped over to that side. And then Sin as well. So I guess three of the 5 players kind of got poached by Broad. And I don't think they're looking better for it.
I think Demo, their top planer, looked good in those games versus Verdant, because we didn't get to see obviously the games versus Natives. Rise will have only played two series.
Yeah, we had the least amount of actual data on Rise, to be fair.
So Demo looked okay. I think Cure, or as someone said to me, Kier, which is definitely not the.
It's definitely not Kier.
It's not
We don't
Kier.
invoke Kier in this country.
No.
It's Kier, yeah.
Yeah, Kier. Like I think he actually had two quite hard games. Don't think he looked particularly confident in either of the two games versus Verdant. Bot lane looked pretty solid. DDD, Jamsu, all right. I think Jamsu, like
Jamsu was trying so
He's
hard
trying.
in that most recent series, that Verdant series. Like he's trying to make plays on playmakers at every available opportunity. That is what we kind of come to know Jamsu for, is for like Nautilus, Rakan, heavy playmaking style, right? I think that's the way to best use him, and he is able to find angles, but whether the team is in a position to follow up or whether the choice of that engage at that time was exactly correct, you know, who's to say, I suppose. But he's able to get in, he's able to find critical targets and get CC down onto them. But we need the rest of the puzzle to be in place for that to work. Otherwise, you're just kind of barreling into team fights that end up going badly.
I just want to see more out of Ketsuo. I feel like this is the elephant.
We've seen everything out of Ketsuo.
No, I
we've
think
seen
this is the
all
elephant.
sides of Ketsuo.
I think this is the elephant in the room. So he last played on that Paragon roster, and I think he was the main threat on that roster. He had a number of really good games when they managed to. That was the split where they managed to. I think they snuck into playoffs.
They knocked out Absolved, I think, right? With and Ketsuo managed to outperform Emil in like a playoff series.
I can't remember if that was. I can't remember. My brain is going crazy because I get the the Glorp Cat and that roster timeline mixed up. But the Glorp Cat one didn't make
Ketsuo,
it.
He had Fraser's as jungle, didn't he? Wasn't he?
Oh, no, that was Venomcrest. That was it. He was on Venomcrest. And he was on Paragon before that. Yeah, he knocked out. He also knocked out that Venomcrest roster. Knocked out Rise Gaming in that same playoffs run. And I think that
that they were starting to cook in the lower bracket.
He's a really solid player. I just think these two games, for example, he gets Azir, which is one of his more storied picks. It's one that he's played a lot. And I think he had a really rough game on Azir. And I just want to see him actually putting in the time. Sometimes he disappears and comes back, but he seems to be now here to stay for a consistent period of time. And I think King Julian needs to come for the crown rather than to sit there like a jester, because I think he kind of was a bit of a...
He's a bit of a sacrifice, actually.
He seemed like a bit of a sacrifice in both of that. Yeah,
Cat chat members
a bit
of
Madagascar humor for you,
a bit of topical current humor for everyone viewing. I bet like half the players in this league probably weren't born when that film came out, but like we saw like in that series, in that Sylas game particularly, we saw 1v1, 2v2 God, like 1v4ing enemy teams on Sylas long enough for this team to come in and save him, like outplaying individually in like a not necessarily like free lane matchup. We saw Prime Ketsuo, and then we saw Ketsuo is now tossing the game repeatedly,
like running into them.
He's not the only one, but he was part of that, and we kind of just individual members of Rise just getting caught out. They have full map control, and they're somehow getting caught 1v4 and losing their lead, giving shutdowns away, and the game just like slides away from them. And it was a bit tragic, honestly, to see it happen in that second game when they'd lost the first one to, I think, a little bit of he struggled in game one and looked like he was coming back strong in game two.
He looked really good at the beginning of game two. He did look early on. It was a bit of a mess, and then he gets a solo kill and seems to start picking up kills here and there. I just think he needed to. It's something where like there's like a lot of cleaning up that needs to be done with Rise's gameplay, and I think that they got a lead in that game too, and it's the fact that they don't win that game gives me great pain.
It's illegal.
To watch, because you sit and think you really got leads in a game where now you should be able to like actually just close it out. Like they started going in like weird times, and it's all not on the same page. That game one, I 100% agree they should lose that game one.
Yeah.
But that game two is a bit iffy, and it comes to the other team we want to talk about, Verdant, because that was obviously against Verdant.
The other side of this coin.
Like Verdant had the first game in the series versus Bulldog, they struggled. The second game they were in a lead, but then Bulldog pulled it out through some crazy ults from Faulty on Nico and just a couple overextensions from like Podex on the Neferi. And then in this series versus Rise, I think that they looked significantly better. That game one, Podex ran rings around Cure in the jungle. Like he absolutely dominated that guy. I don't think Cure got a single Raptor respawn at all the entire game, which is just insane. And then in the second game, they were behind, and to be fair, they did manage to sort of form the phalanx and actually push through for a win as opposed to just sitting there and rolling over and dying to like a Silas comp that was like scrapping them across the map early on.
Yeah,
They
you've
look
got to be able to punish mistakes because there will be doors will be left open in the Four Nations, and you've got to be willing to find them and work through them. Right? It can't all be winning early game and converting. Like that's just the nature of League, and especially sort of ERL2 League as we could call it. But
I
like,
have a few concerns
so credit
for
to
them
Verdant
though.
for identifying those.
I have
Yeah, they definitely have a way to go.
I need Podix diffed. I honestly did diff Cure in the jungle in that series.
Yeah.
However, I think if you watch how Cure was playing early on, I don't think there was the same sort of. I don't know if like is he going to be able to do that versus? Well, he didn't do it against Pivotal. That didn't happen. Is he going to do it against Tweak? You know, is he going to do it against Phrase? Is he going to do it against UKI? Like this is the moment where like yes, he can start really taking control of the map early on in the series versus Rise. Is he going to do that against some of the more solid teams with more aggressive laners? That's the other question I have as well with like for Silent Sprinter and Influentic. So far, they've laned against, or Influentic's laned against Faulty and then not looking very prime Ketsuo, and he still got solo killed by Ketsuo. Like, is it going to be a case where when he comes up against Bear Tree, what's that going to look like? When he comes up against Emil, what's that going to look like? Because if you looked at like, I don't know, everyone has their own individual tier lists. But like Influentic, he's got to start competing with like I had Ketsuo slightly above Influentic, and I'm seeing Ketsuo solo kill Influentic. So like, what happens when all these other mids that I have above him, like the Kuroshes of the world, what's that laning looking like? What's Synapse looking like laning against those other top laners? Because Demo, in my opinion, generally had the better part of the matchup against Synapse, especially in that game too, in the Cassandre versus Rumble. And if you're starting to lose lanes like that, it's harder to really pull it all together as the game goes on, because you just start losing more at 10 minutes and teams actually know how to close.
Yeah, we need to see them tested against the more of the mid pack and to see how that fares, because like they definitely have some talented players, like, and they're willing to go for off the wall drafts as well. Like credit to Coach Frisky for putting together the ASOL draft, and then the ASOL went crazy. Like Influence's
really
ASOL was very, very good, and they used it really well. So they're not just picking crazy stuff and hoping to destabilize a lane. They're playing well like with these picks. And as you say, like, that's this level, that is a very real and powerful thing to be able to use. Like we spoke about Faulty for the same reason. So that's solid, but we need to see them tested. They are improving clearly. They had a rough first series. They had a better second series. They've shown that they can win and convert, and they can mount a comeback if the opportunity is given to them. So these are good signs. But it's really just seeing about how these players will stack up against
it's laning.
Our most
it's
our
laning
most
that is
powerful
my biggest
opponents.
concern. I think it's not even like the team play later. It's just how their laning has played out, because I think they were struggling in a few lanes in the Bulldog series and in this series. There's a few lanes that didn't quite go as the way they wanted. And like they were bailed out by Podex, honestly, in a number of like in that Bulldog series, they lost that game, but he was like running the map on the Fury, and like you can't always rely, and there's losing lane gracefully on picks that facilitate your jungler, and then
a very important skill,
and then losing in a way like I think in that Yanara game, I think it was very, very hard for him to, for example, play. I think it was like Yanara Karma, and he seemed to be really, really struggling in that bot lane matchup versus DDD and Jamsu, who we wouldn't be putting DDD Jamsu. No offense to either of those players in the sort of higher echelons of the sort of duo queue or duo lane like lineup. Like we'd be saying, Sin Akers is up there, Rhythm Gibble is up there. We're not putting DDD Jamsu in that sort of even A tier bot lanes that we have in the league. So like if your bot lane is struggling or having a hard time against that, how do you overcome that? Is that a draft issue or is that a gameplay issue? Maybe a bit of both. And I think that's where Verdant needs to shine, because they lost. If you think about how we shaped up the league, they lost to the Dogs 2-0. They've beaten Rise. So are they looking at Nuclear Vikings and saying this is a must-win, or are they looking at the teams above them and saying we are going to beat these teams easily? It's just the Dogs' loss was just a bit of a hiccup, because that's where we're looking at that last relegation slot. And in my head so far at the moment, looking at just gameplay, it's Rise, Verdant, or it's Nuclear Vikings. Verdant are the least likely, but there's still a possibility that they drop into it.
Yeah, I think they've got to be looking at Nuke as a must-win so that they can make sure they have a critical head-to-head over them. If Nuke's top side, if the bot lane stabilizes and the top side can start to leverage, they are going to start picking up wins. And like they've all got very tough matchups to play. Now Nuke, at least, like they've gone against Absolved, Good Chi, and Bandits. That's a tough schedule, bro. That's from what we've seen, that's not the easiest start to the season. They've still got to play natives, Rise, Verdant. Like Nuke will have a chance to leverage that. So they're going to be looking to make sure they hit that top 8, that critical top 8 spot. That's what they're going to be looking for. And I think that from speaking to Frisky after, especially that first series after the first 0-2 against Bulldog, he was still very confident in their ability to gel. He said they've been forming, like, their practice has been going better than that first series looked. We then saw that play out on the second series, so I think they are improving rapidly. They're still, like, putting a lot of new pieces together, and he's pretty hopeful for them being able to mount a decent challenge.
I think they will get top 8. I don't think that they are. I think
I
Nuclear
think
Vikings or
should with
Rise are
this.
more at risk of that ninth place slot. But I do sit there and worry, like, just for laning. Just that's the big thing for me is, like, you can lose games even against, like, the Nuclear Vikings just off of not playing lane correctly, right? Like, this is not something where you can just bail yourself out with better macro at 15 to 20 minutes every single game.
You can also lose lane against Broad, and they'll somehow manage to almost throw the game by just pushing on a dumb side lane. So if they do that against Verdant know what to do.
Exactly,
they'll clap you and they'll win. So.
And this is a team that I'm watching because I wonder where they're the hardest, probably the hardest roster for me when I was looking in preseason where to place, because I think they had, like, some experienced talent. They had some new they had some new faces. I don't know how that experienced talent shapes up with the rest of the league anymore. So I'm just looking at their next matchup, which is on the 16th. They're playing against Absolved. That to me is probably the test, really. Like, I don't think Dogs is a test.
Have shown Absolved are not where they need to be yet. They should have strong laners, right? They've got decent, like, their talent is high for that, like, early stage of the game, but they have shown that they do have weakness that can be exploited, and they are not quite putting it together as they can yet. So that could be a chance for Verdant.
And I think I'm trying to think if we got any. We spoke a bit about Inari. We spoke a bit about everyone.
We have, well, the only one we haven't spoken about is Natives Academy.
Natives Academy. It's hard to talk about that because they didn't play the first game. The second game was a mess
with the sub-mid, and, like, I just don't think we've seen anything like what this roster was even supposed to be, and, like, the entire kind of energy and the vibe around it is just now very negative. Inari, I think, just skill checked them. It seemed like the way they were playing out at basically every stage. And I imagine Bulldog did the same, because the Bulldog players are not unskilled individually necessarily, but or was that one played or was that not played? Because the Rise one wasn't played, but so anyway, so I don't think there's too much to say about Natives, to be honest. If there ends up being something to say about them, we will, but for now there's just really nothing.
There's no data, and there's no
data, and it's not going to be that entertaining or useful for anybody. So
we can answer the question that the Broads have asked. Valentine's Scene question. This can go to either of us. What's your favourite UKL couple? Now
probably Sin and Jamsu.
I think they've broken up. I think
that's why it's good though, because it's like a soap opera.
It's like lovers to enemies to lovers.
Eventually they'll be back on the same team, and then we'll get the conclusion to that 8-season story.
I think Sinner's cheating on him with Akka. I think Sin and Akka's are now the power.
I think they were always cheating on. I think this was always going on.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to break into Jamsu, but that might be the case. I think Gov and Nemli together as well. They're quite a power couple. They complement each other well. Nemli the quiet one, Joel the outgoing.
Gov's the outgoing one. Nemli's rude.
that kind of thing as well. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else in any other teams. I think that's probably my favourite UKL couple, but I don't know if there's too many. I mean, it's Valentine's Day, and one of us on this stream has someone to spend time. Actually, both of us do.
You do. You're spending time with Jamsu, no? You're going and hanging out with him, with Jammy Sue and co. So
I don't think there's anything else we can talk about quickly before we go. Next game Monday. Blah 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 blah. What's going on? I've got to have a look. I never checked.
So we've got Chi Rise.
Thank you for having it up.
We have Chi Rise, Broad and Inari off stream, and then Absolved and Verdant in the second round. So we have Absolved and Verdant, which we've mentioned. I think that's going to be a very interesting one to see, to track kind of the trajectory of both of them. And then Chi Rise, we'll finally get Chi on the mainstream, which will be nice. And this is probably, Rob's kind of expression says it all, probably going to be a little bit tough for Rise in terms of just like passive skill quality, like pound for pound per roster. Good Chi's probably number one, and Rise are kind of suffering a little bit in that regard. So it's probably going to be a tough one. They're going to need to have something crazy to come out. We're going to need to see prime Ketsuo, prime Jamsu, and we're probably going to need to see Good Chi drop the ball a little bit. So we'll see how that pans out, but I'm excited at the very least to see some mainstream Chi action.
And off stream, although I'll have to check if I don't know if the Brods will be streaming it. I hope they do. Brod and Ari is also a very, very important game because
Low-key, yeah.
Brod keep dropping games. And they can't keep dropping games if they want to have good standing for, top 4 for playoffs. They can't be doing that.
Yeah.
And Inari, they played against natives, and obviously that was a bit of a wash. They played against bandits, and they looked very good. Or at least it wasn't on stream, but they if you look at how they played, it was like there was a Nat masterclass on Karthus, like a 2-0, proper win. Bandits have find themselves now. Maybe there's a discussion point there, but Brod need to get both wins here because I think they need to start stopping the rot of going 1-1 against everyone, and they need to start claiming the top 2 slots that we say that they are going to be in, because realistically against Gucci it was a 1-1 split, but against the Dogs it should have been a 2-0, and you can't drop games versus what we viewed as, or what many people view as, middle of the pack teams consistently, because don't forget, this is kind of like a best of, like, if you think about it, this is kind of like a bit of like a preview to a best of series with two games in a night, and if you're going to be going 1-1 with everyone, that's worrying. That's scary.
Eventually, you're gonna have to win a best of. You can't 1-1 the whole series, the whole season.
And so that game should be exciting. I also think that natives, or not natives, Inari have looked surprisingly good. Like surprisingly solid.
We're gonna see them against, like, on stream against a benchmark team in Broad, and we're gonna see, okay, are these guys just did they just have good pre-built synergy, are willing to draft comfort, and like play with confidence, which is enough to bowl over teams, especially early on in a season, or is there actually like real, true, proven quality here that is going to be scary for the rest of our established rosters to see.
Well, we'll have to see, cause I do know we have a plan for next week Saturday that I have been leaked, which I will not leak yet, but we should have a guest.
We do. Yeah.
We do have a plan for next week. Very exciting stuff. I know I'm going to be here. I don't know if you're going to be here.
Who knows, man? We'll find out.
But we'll find someone. Hopefully,
someone will be on this.
Middle Cop would be around, or someone on a Saturday afternoon. But I think that's everything. I don't think we have to cover it anymore. Just a good recap. Thank you for everyone who showed up today. I see in the chat the last question was the UKEL couple question, but the Broad Sports, they're always here to support. Jolly's always here to flame me, and so that's always really exciting.
Just kind of shout chants into the void, just workshop, in a group setting. That's good.
Well, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. I think it's time we wrapped up. Thank you, everybody. We will be back.
And Mitch is here to say Rob out. And Mitch says Rob out in chat. He's hiding. Listen here, Coach Mitch. You better be getting Brod to the top of the league, okay, Coach Mitch? Come in there, smack hackers around a bit, teach him how to play Alistair properly, and get him to the top of the league. None of this Rob out nonsense. Look at yourself first. You're 1-1 against the Dogs. You're 1-1 against the Dogs.
Okay, we need to cut the stream now. Rob's been tilted. Rob's lost it. He almost made it all the way through. But sadly, he's now been blown his lid at the slightest provocation from Little Pants. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back I'll say similar time next week. Obviously, we're still working the timings out. We'll be back for another Saturday show next week. And we'll be back on Mondays and Thursdays, usual time at 6:30-ish. I believe, like 4:15 for more UKL Four Nations action. And we hope to see you there.